Good. Hey, good evening, everybody. It's 5:30. We'll get our BZA meeting started. Just going through our agenda for tonight. We will have a silent prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Then we'll start with the public hearing. At that point, we'll have Mr. Whitney swear everybody in, kind of explain that process of how everybody will speak on behalf of both of these submissions tonight. So we'll go ahead and get started. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right? Yeah.
Good evening.
We got to do it.
Yeah, roll call.
Oh, roll call first, right? Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Shrewsbury?
Yep.
Mr. Palma?
Here.
Mr. Grinnell?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Here.
Mr. Whitman?
Here.
All present, we have quorum.
All right.
All right. Good evening. My name is Vic Whitney. I'm legal counsel to the board here this evening. As the chairperson indicated, we've got a couple public hearings tonight. First applicant is Sure Signs, 142 East Granville Street, and the other is 1351 Clover Street. So the way this will work is if you want to speak tonight and testify and give any testimony on either one of those public hearings for either one of those matters, in a moment I'm going to have you stand up and we'll swear you in. If you think at all that you might want to give testimony, please stand at that time and be sworn in, because if you want to then later testify, we'd have to stop and swear you in again. So if you do stand up and are sworn in, then you decide you don't want to give testimony, that's totally fine. No one will force you to do that, but we do need you to be sworn in if you are going to testify. And that goes for the applicants as well, and anybody they have with them that may be testifying on their behalf. The chairperson will call you up when he's ready for you to speak on either of these matters. And when he does, please come to the podium, speak loudly and clearly into the microphone. There's a stenographer here who is taking down everything. It is a public hearing. So please, the commission or the board members may ask you questions. And if they do, allow them to speak and get their question out before you respond, because it's much easier for the stenographer to take one person's testimony at any given time. So when you come up, please state your name, who you are, give your address clearly so that the stenographer can take down who you are. And like I said, direct all your conversation or questions or comments to the board. And then when they're through with you, they'll let you know, and then we'll go forward in that matter. So if we're all ready, anybody that thinks they may want to testify tonight, please stand and we will get you sworn in.
Raise your right hand. I'll swear you. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll present will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Back to you, Mr. Chairperson.
Okay, so we will get started with our public hearing for the first variance request for Sure Signs. I assume Mr. Scott Hodor, please.
And Mr. Chairperson, if you would, I will just interrupt real quick just to get into the record the exhibits as Mr. Fodor's approaching the lectern there. So I have marked as exhibits here 3 documents. Exhibit A is a 4-page document which constitutes the variance application that the applicant submitted, which contains his narrative, the site plan, and a copy of the legal description. Exhibit B is a 5-page document, which is the public notice that went out, and then the proof of mailing to the affected property owners. And Exhibit C is a 4-page document, which is the staff report that you all received. So I would submit those into the record at this time.
And we are going to change a little bit and start with our staff report actually, and then we'll go into the applicant presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Shrewsbury. So the applicant, Mr. Fodor, is looking for a reduction in front setback from 100 feet to 54 feet. His current parcel is zoned industrial, and he's looking to create a new structure or demolish an old structure, create a new structure on top of where the old one sat. So he's looking for that request as the Granville Street he's kind of slightly sloped up a hill, retaining wild trees, and then his building is located off Granville Street. Aside from that, the only other note I had was that there are plans, it's currently being planned in expansion of Granville Street. We don't have any documents or anything to give you guys as far as how much it'll be expanded or where it'll be expanded, but we just wanted to let you guys know that in case Scott references that as well.
All right. So that's it for the staff report. We'll go ahead to the applicant.
Good evening, my name is Scott Fodor, owner of Sure Signs, 142 East Granville Street. The variance that I requested under my LLC, which was NMO Properties. I don't know if that needs to be noted. Because Sure Signs isn't actually requesting for the variance, but NMO Properties is. I just operate Sure Signs at that location. So if you've read the papers, our plans are we would like to tear down our existing building, we put up a larger structure and rent it out. Future businesses that would be interested in that. We would move our business to the rear. We purchased property behind us that was owned by Doug Labor, who ran a Great Midwest Yacht back there. Basically the request. The position of the building was put there. If you look at the drawing, the northeast corner is at the maximum point of where the southwest corner, which is 54 feet, 0.68, is where the rail easement that we granted to Preservation Parks, that access close that we can put the building in as far over to the northeast corner, the southwest corner. I'm sorry, the odd property away the north views up there. So, and then as you would go to the northeast corner, which the building size is 133 foot long there running along the trail. There's a 12-inch water main that runs right there. So that's basically landlocked as far as going any farther that way or trying to build farther away, not have the need for the variance request. Based on the history that I did, that water easement was something that the village of Sunbury requested back, I don't know the date, but a long time ago with Ellis Brothers. And when they were operating the business, they basically just had materials there, so it really wasn't an issue for them. Years ago, I looked at putting another building up there that would have went over the water line, and I thought that garden on the pipeline at the time I said it would be around $40,000 expense to move that water line. So it would basically be in the setback area, and there were a couple other issues, but at that time we decided to not build on that side. And then it was years went on, I negotiated and bought the rear property where we'll be able to move in it, and that's where I wanted to start looking at developing and better utilizing the front part of the property.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you do me a favor and pull that shade down? Because I'm staring right into the sun.
Shade doesn't come down.
Well, it doesn't. Oh, okay. Well, I'll just bear with it. Thank you for trying to. Just some general questions, orientation from my understanding. I think the key issue with the setback and the amount of footage really focuses on whether it's a state or a federal highway. And that's what really tightens up the thing. So another way of kind of thinking about this in my mind, and I'm trusting you would agree with this, is if this was not a state or federal highway issue, we wouldn't even be talking about this today. Why the easement would be not an issue, but since that's one of the aspects that brings us to our attention. In that you were going to demolish the building, how much bigger is the footprint than the existing building?
The new building is 10,400 square feet, and my existing building is not exactly sure, under 3,000 square feet.
Oh, substantially less.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
quite a-
okay, I got it.
The existing building is, old and in need of, it's a family. I mean, it's a usable building now that I wouldn't want to put, amount of money into it. We're trying to expand with that building. But the engineer has suggested that the age of the building is best started with construction.
Understood. Are you aware of any other buildings in Sunbury on the state or federal highway that have a setback less than 100 feet?
If you count the old car wash, which is bottom of the hill, would be my neighbor and a certified. Those are both right next to my building, and there's a substantial closer to the road than what mine is.
I noticed that your property is elevated. Okay, you have a retaining wall and so on, et cetera. And basically it's you, the trees, and then the street. Okay, so if you were just looking at this, in what way would somebody, another person, another business, so on, et cetera, be harmed if the easement was reduced to what you're asking for versus mandating 100? Is there anyone that's going to be harmed if that happens?
My opinion is there's not anyone that would be harmed, because it's not really, I'm not moving the building. It may be a few feet closer than what is existing now, but the slope is such that even with the proposed plan for widening 37, I don't see to where even that would be an issue, because the elevation change is so great within that 50-foot. This where this 54.68 distance, if I go down onto 37. Sorry, I can't hear there. If I go down to 37 and measure from the center of the road over to the existing railroad abutment, the big concrete structure that's there, that's 36. I'm sorry, that's 18 feet from the center of the road to that. So basically, there's a 60-foot elevation change from that concrete abutment straight up to where I want to put the building. So the majority of that slope is right there. I don't see how.
And the fact of the matter is, in looking at the pictures that you submitted, people probably don't even know that you're there unless they were looking for you.
Correct.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
What is your setback on your current building?
The current building, the engineer in the air put a 65-foot building setback because he thought, you see the diagonal line going through my building now. My existing building basically sits.
If you don't mind pointing on this screen so we can see.
Yeah, my existing building basically sits about where this drive comes here and across. Roughly in that area there. We'd be extending it over as far as we could, where it's still flat, because as you can see the contour lines, even, the driveway comes up, fitting the slopes down.
Will the new building be any closer to the road than the existing building?
Yeah.
And then out of clarity, my understanding, if I'm reading this right, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it's a state or federal highway, it has to be 100 feet from the road. But if it is not a state or federal highway, it has to be 65 feet from the road. To clarify that, I do believe he is still not within the setback, even if it wasn't a state or federal road. It has to be 65.
Yes, that's correct. In fact, I was going to make that point. Mr. Grunau, you'd indicated that we would not be here, but for the fact that it needs to be 100 feet off. Given what he's proposing, it would have to be 60 feet off of that roadway. That's sort of the standard requirement.
Good clarification.
So,
Thank you.
yes.
Would you be removing any trees under this new proposed? building. Is the height any higher than your existing proposed building?
It might be a few feet higher, but it's not gonna be significant. The existing building now has 15-foot ceilings. And the proposed building is gonna have a 16 or 18-foot wall. Where this one's a 15-foot wall, so. Not noticeable. We want to build a high enough so you get a 14-foot door in, so anybody with a commercial vehicle is able to get inside of that building. We're going to put it in a dump truck or a box truck or a semi trailer. The height would be such that would be possible.
Any other questions?
One other comment on it, when I negotiated the trail easement with Preservation Parks, we had an agreement that they would put up a privacy fence on the length of my property, basically from here over to here, because I didn't want people coming out parking in my parking lot and then accessing the trail. And now there is some issue with people in this neighborhood like to cut through. It's not a big deal, but so that's, but that was something I wanted to have. One, that I would, if I put a building up there, I've got a fence protecting the back of my building from all the trail traffic and stuff like that. So, and they wanted this little extra corner here. I think the railroad button comes over here, so they had room to. They only needed 20 for the trail, but they wanted a little bit extra room for crossing, however those grades is going to work out.
Is there a reason why you need to be that close to the road and not at the 65-foot setback?
Because of the water line. I'd have to move the water line.
Is there a reason why you need a 10,000 square foot building?
Wanted to put as big as ones we could out there to have potential rain. Yeah, you see here's where the water line is. And when they did that, they would have went into the setback, then technically, you have more room to bring the building back up that way.
I'm gonna come up to the screen here to better explain some of my questions. So. I'm assuming you want to have this big bay doors here. So you can access, certain.
We haven't confirmed that, but that's, either here or possibly on this end and this end. But this end, no way if it starts to drop down the hill.
Yeah. Well, what I've been thinking of, and I think some of the questions that kind of go in this direction as well, that if you were to meet the requirement here, but adjust the shape of the building here, then I think we can kind of both get what we're looking for, but that would affect your parking here because you need to have room for bays. Otherwise, you can't use it for the way that you want to. And I understand it slopes pretty significantly here, but this is very much just the same as.
Well, where this from here down is unbuildable.
Yeah.
So like there it is.
Mhm.
And we don't have a final design of the layout, how the building would be. We were, the engineer just said, here's the maximum size building you could put within this footprint to, we would off the trail easement and out of the water. And not, going over the hill and having to do, we could go farther that way, but then there's fill involved and more retaining walls. And stuff like that, and that's not getting the same farther. get us in part of that. Yeah, really the only way, in my mind, over the years, if we looked at this property, would be to have to move that water line here to try to avoid that expense. Because there's no problem doing parking over the water line, stuff like that, so.
And is it gravel, asphalt?
Right now, it's, this is all concrete, main drive up to about here. We're gravel in this area to our existing building, and then the majority of this is concrete. But it was existing when else the concrete plant was there.
So the water line is covered by concrete at the moment, and you plan to stick with as much of that
As
concrete?
much, yeah, as much of that is still gonna be, okay, it's still gonna be usable. Because the drive, you know, the drive is in good shape, and, you know, the concrete here actually goes clear back. Right the hill, basically, when they got it. And they did a nice job on it. When it rains, yeah, you can go out there and they've got the watershed, and even on this, the main drive, they've got the car wash here. And they did it such where the water runs and sheds all, yes, that's still over into the car wash. I'm assuming that concrete company, we have to do that properly.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions for the applicant, is there anybody here in the audience interested in a public comment? Have any comment? Nope.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could just add.
Sure.
Alex had indicated that the city does have plans to expand or to improve East Granville Street. I just want to tell you what we do know. While we don't have the detailed engineering on the plan at this point, what I can tell you is conceptually what is proposed for that site. So the area that's right in front of the applicant's building. So the city's concerned about how narrow that roadway is. We've put in a proposal to basically widen the road by 2 feet in each direction. So right now there are 10-foot lanes, widening it to a 12-foot lane. There are plans to then continue the sidewalks on both sides of the street, and then also to add a trail, a 10-foot wide trail. Now, whether that goes on both sides of the street or not is still to be determined. Like I said, the engineers have not determined what the plan looks like in its entirety. The other thing is, as the applicant had indicated, the Ohio to Erie Trail does cross over East Granville Street in that area. We are looking for a way to create some kind of connection as well, and the applicant's been very helpful in terms of accommodating the future path for the Ohio to Erie Trail. I say that to say that, that may argue for the placement of the trail on the Granville side. I'm sorry, on the applicant side of the road, but again, not yet determined. So having said all that, at a minimum, it would appear as if the city is at least going to ask for 2 feet to get the road wider. And a 5-foot wide sidewalk. I think it might be a 4-foot wide sidewalk at the most. So it may be 3 feet at kind of at a minimum. That's without a trail of any sort over there. I think as the applicant had indicated from a visual perspective, we're not necessarily concerned about that. The applicant doesn't seem to be concerned about that. I think we're just concerned about making sure that the engineering works through that area in order to widen the road, create greater safety and greater connectivity for those folks who live, I'll say to the south where the applicant had indicated. So my own personal view is 54 is very tight. I'm not going to speak for the engineers, but I think at a minimum 60 feet would probably be the minimum amount needed, I think, to safely be able to do what the city hopes to do in front of the property. And as we've talked a little bit about, 65 is the requirement for a road if it were not on a state highway. So if that's helpful.
But that too would be subject to a variance and an appeal. the 65. The issue today-
Absolutely,
the
yeah,
issue
absolutely,
Today is it's 100 feet.
correct,
But the point is, if it were a 65 and it wasn't a federal state road, as Kurt pointed out,
yeah,
that would be the issue before us today.
correct,
that we
that,
discussed.
yes,
Yeah, that's
exactly,
my-
exactly, yep. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are okay to close the applicant presentation. There is no public comment. So for this variance, the public hearing can be closed. We'll move into the variance request for 1351 Clover Street. And that will be Joseph and Alexandra Washington. You're welcome to come to the podium. Staff report for this variance.
So for this one, we've had plenty of other fences come in like this. The applicant is requesting a fence on the rear or off the rear of their property, going, I believe it's about 6 feet into the side of their house, not in the side yard. The whole fence itself is located within the rear of the property. As we've discussed before, our zoning text is pretty vague when it comes to ornamental fences in the side and rear yard on corner lots. So that's exactly why we're here today. There's no mention of if it's approved or if it's denied or if it needs to come here. So the variance of itself is for the approval of the ornamental fence within a side or rear yard.
Mr. Chairperson, I'd go ahead and admit exhibits.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I have once again marked 3 documents here as exhibits. The first document is Exhibit A, which is a 12-page document, which consists of the application filed by the applicants and the various documents they submitted. Just as a note, the legal description is not with this. It was submitted, so it will be added to the Exhibit A, which will make Exhibit A 13 pages. But you don't have it here tonight, but it was submitted. We do have that in the office. Exhibit B is a public notice with, and the proof of mailing to the affected property owners, which is a 4-page document. And Exhibit C, once again, is the staff report, which is also 4 pages. Thank you.
Okay, you are welcome.
And 181 Stone Circle Drive, Andrew, Ohio. Father-in-law, Joseph Down. Joe's working second shift falls. As Alex stated, it's a corner lot. And most houses, if the interior will go from the corner of their house to the property line, would probably be anywhere from 5 to 12 feet, usually going that distance. So all Joey and Alexander asking for is to shoot off 5 feet from the edge of their house. From that distance, they have 68 feet from the corner of the house to the property line. That's the inside portion of the sidewalk. So it's a substantial distance. There's no line of sight issues with a 5-foot extension on this. It's really a pretty basic thing. Alex laid it out pretty well. It's not super complicated. So it's all within some zoning issues. So that's essentially why I was here.
Does anybody on the board have any questions for the applicant?
I do. I just want to make sure I understand. So what, in essence, what you're asking for is to get a variance to take the fence 5 feet off the house? Correct. Okay. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
How close is the back corner fence to the sidewalk?
15.
15 feet.
Yeah, 15. At the furthest by the house is 68. After that, it's 15. President towards the angle.
Yeah.
That lot is 25 to 27% larger than the average lot, and because it's a corner lot.
Yeah, but that area that's substantially greater is to the side.
I'm sorry.
The area that's substantially greater is to the side of the house. If you were to look at the different houses, they're pretty much linear in nature.
Yeah, it's still next.
I understand.
You know, that their fences are, you know.
I understand. I'm just saying that the larger area isn't impacting where the fence is.
No, it's not.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
It's my understanding, 15 feet isn't a concern to be that close to the sidewalk. There's nothing. I don't believe
Not
there
that
is.
I know of, no.
Okay.
I think it's stated, I don't think it's a relevant section, but it might be for corner lots, but it lets you go up to 1 feet to the sidewalk. So
Oh,
I
okay.
think that'd be fine.
So we're here because of the zoning language for corner lots. And it's strictly due to the type of fence.
Yes, so in that section, and I'll pull it over here. In the corner lot section, it says, privacy fences otherwise permitted inside a rear yard shall not extend into the required side or rear yard on the street side, absent prior approval from what was the Sunbury Planning and Zoning Commission, now the Board of Zoning Appeals. So if this was a privacy fence, you'd have to come, it wouldn't be a variance, it would just need approval. Following that, it says, however, it shall not prohibit permitted rail or split rail fences to be erected in such side or rear yard fences parallel. So the text specifically lists privacy fences need to come for your approval. Rail or split rail are fine to be approved. So that ornamental fence, kind of the gray area in between, is what brings us here, I think, most of the time.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board or the applicant? Is there anybody in the audience like to provide public comment? Oh, okay. So then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this variance request.
Move to close the public hearing.
Yes, we need a motion.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Grinnell,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Iba,
Yes.
6 yeas, motion approved.
Oh, we didn't approve. Oh, never mind. There was the public hearing. All right, it's confusing myself. Bear with me here. Okay, so we can now move forward into the BZA discussion. So we will first discuss the first variance for animal properties or signs. Does anybody have anything they'd like to discuss?
So the concern that I have is as close as the retaining wall is to the roadway and the potential plans that the city may have. Is that going to impact where that retaining wall is today, getting closer to the edge of the property line? And without knowing that, it's already closer than it ought to be with the updated regulations.
Yes, same question I had. Maybe you can answer. Are they intending then, they would have to take that retaining wall down and do the grading and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll be examining all of those walls. I mean, there are different types of walls along that street, but the engineers will look at all of those. Yeah, I would anticipate that to complete this project, even if it's just the road widening and the sidewalk, it will require some work along those walls,
And you mentioned that.
which the city will engineer and, have some
One of the
responsibility.
options was the path, trail path, I think is what you're saying, could be on either side.
Yeah, the original proposal to seek funding, so it's about a $7.5 million project. The city has secured about $6 million toward that project, but we haven't completed the detailed engineering. So that's, the conceptual plan had a trail on both sides of the road.
Is there a spatial limitation on the other side of the road if you were to put the path on that side?
I think there is still an issue. I mean, there's a bridge abutment on the other side of the road as well. It's going to need to come out. You do have residential properties on that side as well. I mean,
Okay,
it will get impacted,
okay, gotcha.
or they will be impacted.
If that happens, does then that pose safety concerns from the structure being even closer to the roadway?
So to the what?
To the roadway, so if you take away the retaining wall, the road goes closer to the structure, and the structure's already at 54 feet now, that's could approximately drop 8 to 10 feet off of that, or even further from the current variance. And with the slope, does that cause safety issues from both the structure on the hill and then also pedestrian traffic?
Yeah, and that's the part that's unknown at this point. I will say, I think when we have done the measurements from the existing building, in the, I guess we'd call it, you're right, the orientation is a little bit odd, isn't it? If you were go to the north, western corner of it, and in the current location, it's about 65 feet off of the road. The south east corner, no, southwest corner is about 60 feet now. So, you know, the bigger building does have a little bit of an impact in terms of pushing it forward. I realize that what the applicant is requesting is, and the reason it gets maybe shoved just a few feet forward is because of that water line to the rear, you know, to maximize the size of the building. That's what's kind of pushing that front of the building to the edge, if you will. So, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, again, I'm not the engineer here. You know, 65 certainly feels like it's a comfortable number and we can design around that. 60 feet, the applicant did show there's a 6-foot gap to the rear of his building and the parking spaces to the rear. Now, that said, he can't push it back because he then gets into that corner of that water easement. But the other thing I know that he has presented informally to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We've talked to him a little bit about parking. I think there would be, I think they would favorably view a reduction in the number of parking spaces. So, you know, again, if you could shove it back, even if you have to give up some parking to make that happen. Again, I think the Planning and Zoning Commission has indicated that they would, again, look favorably upon that. So there may be a way. I mean, I'm not, you know, again, not the engineer. There may be a way to get the building to the size that he wants, have to push it back a little bit, reduce the number of parking spaces. The water line is still a bit of an issue. I grant you that, but there still may be a way to kind of accommodate all of those items.
So your sense is a reduction in the number of parking spots wouldn't be beyond the scope of probability?
I absolutely believe that that is very possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm concerned with the 54-foot ask here. I probably could be convinced on the 65-foot, not necessarily the 100. Do I feel like that is necessary? But I would, me personally, not a fan of the 54-foot.
We have the timing of when the road will be expanded, and I'm guessing it's no, but.
I don't have detailed timing on that. I think we had anticipated that we would do the design work in 2025 and you may see the construction then in 26.
And
I think Mark's right. I think, from what we're hearing, there seems to be other options that would be open to give him what he wants. So it's not like he's in a canyon with no place to go. So I think Mark's logic was right.
as far as the city's planning goes, there's no interest in going to a 4-lane road versus the 2-lane road. It's just a couple feet
Yeah.
change.
yeah.
Okay. So how would we phrase this today as a proposal?
I could propose an amendment to the approval for a 65.
Yeah, be a supplemental condition or safeguard, and I think that would be appropriate, so the board could vote on the application with that supplemental condition, so we want to just make sure we have it specific as to what it is, what that condition is. So if it's some 65.
Yeah, I would say the condition would be 65 instead of the 100 that it's required.
Wouldn't you need to tag on the reduction in parking spots so we can make it viable?
Not,
Or no, not necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a Planning and Zoning Commission issue. Is that right?
I would say.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, but maybe you state for the record, would hope that the Planning Commission would look favorably upon a reduction in blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's a way to get it into the record.
Okay, then. Is there a motion? To vote on the variance request. With a 65-foot setback. With the understanding.
I
That
think the applicant had a
planning and
question as well.
zoning.
Comment.
Sure.
What were the dimensions you were talking about? As far as
Yeah, on the roadway yeah. So
roadway and dimension sidewalk, if possible.
trail, yeah, multi-use trail. So the roadway is currently at their 10-foot wide lanes. So would move to a 12-foot wide lane. Okay, sidewalk would be a 5-foot wide sidewalk. And the trail would be a 10-foot wide multi-use trail. Now, again, that's the conceptual plan. The engineering may not bear that out.
So that's roughly, when I measured today, I just measured from the center of the road to the white line.
Yeah.
It's 11 foot. For the lane, no.
So that'd be 27. That'd be 27 if you went from the center.
Yeah, so does that additional improvements you want to do, is that within the legal setbacks of what the building's allowed to do, or is that imposing on my property? Farther
Okay, I think your question is more of, are we setting that 65-foot distance from your current building or current plan to the street, or the new street line to your building? No?
With their improvements be infringing into my property. That they're adding, I guess, how much room are you allowed to do now?
Right.
Versus in the future, if they're adding 10 feet, 5 feet to 2 feet, they're adding 17 feet. Is that imposing onto my property?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this, that we know we'll need to do some survey work. We know we're going to need to do some maybe some right-of-way acquisition. But that hasn't yet been determined. That'll be a part of the due diligence process. So a right-of-way acquisition would go into your property, but you'd be compensated for any right-of-way that might be quote taken. And we would work with you on that. So, I mean, that's part of the unfolding process. Pardon me.
That's like that,
What part of that's hypothetical?
the right of way acquisition and the compensation. That's something that I don't know would happen and would be beneficial or detrimental to my property.
I can tell you that that's the process we'll follow. I mean, I don't think that's hypothetical. But
Let me
I
ask
understand
you a
what you're
question.
saying.
So if you added up all this extra footage that you wanted, the trail, the sidewalk, the 2 foot of the road, does that go across the 65 foot setback requirement? Would it cross into that area?
yeah,
That's what I'm trying to.
yeah, when you did the measurements of the 65 feet, you basically did that front to the center line of the road, from the corner of the building to the center line of the road.
Yes.
And so I guess what we're saying is that, yeah, I mean, an extension of an additional 2 feet, again, the sidewalk's already there, so it may be another foot of the sidewalk. It's the trail that really is kind of the big issue, and that's the one that probably pushes it back, maybe 10 feet.
The point's this, let's just say for the sake of argument, you say you vote yes for 65 feet.
Mhm.
But if you really need 60 feet, that needs to be the compromise, because if you approve it for 65 feet, but you cross that 65-foot line into his property, then he's still out of luck. Am I thinking that correctly?
Say it one more time, just to make sure I'm
So
following
let's
it.
just say that they say 60, he's gotta be 65 feet from the road, setback's gotta be 65 feet from the road. Okay?
Mhm.
But if you add all this stuff in, all this additional footage, does that move the line where the trail ends? Okay, because that'll be the starting point. From that point, 65 feet hence is the out of luck.
Yeah.
Because if you were to say, you say, hey, thumbs up on 65 feet, but he doesn't have 65 feet if all this stuff is done, whether you get compensated or not, which I believe you would.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to understand it because that would be like a worthless motion.
Yeah, no, I mean, that perfectly legitimate questions. I mean, maybe we can agree to, 65 feet from the edge of roadway. And then, the city has to engineer accordingly. And if we can't agree, if we can't get the sidewalk and the trail in, like I said, that may drive it to the other side of the road. But at least we know then that the building's sitting back 65 feet from edge of
I think that
roadway.
makes sense. I think
Yeah.
if you can at least set a demarc.
Yeah.
At, the edge of the road as it exists today and say, whatever it is, and then they got to figure it out.
Right.
How to squeeze it in if they put some on this side or that side or whatever. It's just that, we don't want to create a problem saying he's got it and then, but he really doesn't.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's fair. I mean, yeah, this is a tight area, Recky. We're not trying to take all of that property and kind of force everybody back because there's going to be a whole bunch of other properties that don't have any kind of improvement whatsoever that are going to sit at the existing location and they're going to be impacted by this as well. So
And if he can get, something worked out, which sounds very probable to eliminate some of the, parking spaces, then we can kind of shift things back a little bit. So I think that, strategically thinking that would work out for everybody.
yeah, I think that's fair.
The issue with this is much of the parking, that if we move the building, if keep the building at the the proposed size and move it back down into the water line.
No, you're not. That is not as I look at the map, the water line goes through the parking lot. Right?
The back corner of
Yeah,
it.
Alyssa, can you pull the map back up?
Did I?
Yeah.
My point is simply, my quick look at it looked like there was parking spots right there. I may got this wrong. Where's the water line?
So if we eliminate these parking spots.
No, why would you do
Got
that?
30 feet and we push it there. The water line and easement is all right here. So he's technically at the corner of the easement now.
Right.
So if we go in this direction, I don't know, 20 feet, whatever that parking space is. We're gonna be right on top of the water. Corner of the building.
So.
It's right on the easement.
Yeah, where your finger was just there a moment ago at the bottom. How much room is it from the corner of the building to where the water line is?
He's right on the easement.
So-
That's the dotted line.
Well, I understand it, but I'm asking a question. What's
I
the
know
distance?
this isn't the right one to measure.
Yeah.
But this parking space is 20 feet, and that's about, right about the same. Like, specified figures, but about 20 feet.
I mean, if the engineers are approved, you're talking really a 5 or 10 foot kind of difference on that thing. Or maybe you can whack off the corner of that building and make it not absolutely square.
So, from the current point of measurement, we need to increase 10 feet. So we would end up putting this corner right about here. So give him about 10 feet to that water line.
Yeah, but I'm saying also an architectural modification would work, is take off a right angle on the bottom. Then you have lots of the building.
Oh, you're talking
Yep.
about the building here.
Yep.
That's possible.
Yeah, that would solve a big problem for me.
It's unfortunate we don't know for all this, and maybe with the improvement here, the city can cover the cost of that adjustment of water main, but
Yeah, all I'm trying to say, piggybacking off, his comments earlier, I think there's options that could make both sides happy.
yeah. But our focus today is here. And this could be still planned. What is your plan of construction?
We were shooting for spring, get all the processes done. That lined up, trying to shoot for spring, so not as huge, not as easier, not trying to.
What's the anticipated cost of the building?
I mean, it's probably pushing 400,000, 500,000.
So 500,000 was to build that building, 10,000 square foot building. Just a thought. Again, options. If you couldn't get enough space for the parking spots, moving the water line apart is part of the capital expense.
Well, I have no problem if we had to shift the building back if the water line was addressed.
If it was what?
If the water line was loose, I was just trying to.
I understand. You mentioned it was a $40,000 ticket to move the water line.
Well, that was 5 or 6 years ago.
I know, that's just the number you drew out today. I don't know what it is.
Right. Right. And that was moved then, if I could. They were gonna take it, I think from here and come straight over and across to get it. But then,
That was the scope to move it for that time.
I mean, I'm not, there were no drawings and plans, I just contacted
No, I got it.
our pipeline and they said that they would. Maybe they were gonna put it in a setback, which would have ran it, along here and across there. But yeah, I mean, if it could end up being a shorter route, that was fine, because the building I initially proposed years ago, it was going to come clear up to where my setback was, because it was going to be a lot longer build. So, I'm trying to remember how that was. So, I'm assuming they were going to put the water line in the 20-foot setback. I was going to put that building, because that building was going to be 165 foot long, so it would have come right up to the retail line, so on here, but the 20-foot setback that would be off of this property line there. Yeah, I had no problem with if we need to move this back 10 feet. You suggested possible capital improvements for the roadway would cover the cost of the water.
No, I didn't say that. I said your capital cost, that's on you.
And that's made 65 feet work. If that's the magic number, whether it involves the water line or shortening the building.
Or modifying your building a little bit. Even if you whacked off 5 foot on each end of that square, that give you what you want.
Okay, so
Well, there's a lot of things in that. It could
Yeah.
go up this way and back. That's one of the.
I think we can discuss the options for quite a while. I mean, there's lots of options.
Yeah.
On what can happen. I think that could be a long discussion without any result for us today. So our focus is in the front corner. So it sounds like we are gonna make a motion for a 65-foot setback from today's road to the corner of the building. Is
that from the center line of the road or is that from the current road edge? Like, how do we measure that?
looks like the road edge.
It's the edge of, it's the edge of the roadway.
It's the start of the right of way.
Yeah.
To start the edge of the roadway. Okay, thank you.
Don't think that's correct. My engineer said it's from the center line of the road.
Well, so what he's referencing here is that if you pull up the county auditor's website, what you'll see is there's not a dedicated public roadway through that area. It's been platted with the roadway included in it. And so there are easements in place that basically that allow for the movement of traffic across that roadway. So,
What is?
but it's not the only place in Sunbury where we have that situation
Let
going.
me ask you this, for the code, is it based on center of roadway or edge of roadway?
It's based on the edge of the property, right?
of way.
Edge of the right of way line.
line.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for language, I think your motion would be 65 feet from the right of way line.
Thank you. That is what I would.
So our motion would be 65 feet from the right of way line to the corner of the proposed building.
I would motion, that if there's second.
You want a qualification with that as far as the lots or anything like that, like they were talking about, or just simple that, if you're saying?
I think that is about all we can vote on.
What you're saying, creating a record for them.
Oh, right. So with the understanding that planning and zoning would approve adjustments to parking spaces.
Yeah, so you can't make that, you can't make that. I think what we can say is that you're gonna encourage the planning and zoning commission to, again, view the request for a parking reduction favorably, but your vote is on the right of way line.
So,
Yeah, and so what I would
That's-
suggest
yes.
is you make your motion,
Yep.
get your second, take a vote on that, and after that, whatever, make a statement, to the extent it passed, then I think you would want to make your statement on the record. So again, I think this, from the sounds of it, what your motion would be is a motion to approve the application subject to the modification that the building setback be no closer than 65 feet to the right of way.
so that is our.
What I'm hearing.
And I'll second that.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Grinnell,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
6 yeas, motion approved.
Congratulations.
So with that, we would hope that the Planning and Zoning Commission would take into consideration the unique design of this lot and think favorably on what they could do to accommodate the owner in the situation.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have BZA.
We still,
You guys are up next. Yeah, don't go yet. Don't leave yet. So we have BZA discussion for the second variance request of 1351 Clover Street. There anybody with anything they'd like to bring up from the board?
Two questions. Did the HOA approve, or does this fall within the HOA guidelines? It does.
it's been approved, technically approved.
And then this is just a decorative steel fence that's 4 feet high and you can see through.
Consistent with every other fence in the neighborhood.
Yes. That's all I had.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Grinnell,
Yes.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
6 yeas, motion approved.
Correct.
Congratulations.
Do we have to approve the minutes from last meeting?
Yes, we do. That is our next agenda item. Does anybody have any corrections that they would like to make for the minutes for our last meeting?
I'll move to approve the minutes as is, with no corrections.
A second.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Grinnell,
Abstain.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
5 yeas, motion's approved.
And our next meeting is tentatively August 19th. Currently no.
Certainly no submissions.
Okay.
If anything changes, I will let you all know.
All right, and then we need a motion to close.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Mr. Grinnell,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
6 yeas, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
See you, man.